So what is Sahaja Samadhi? I'll do my best to try and describe it, but it's really something that can't be described. But I'll try. It's really something that no one can understand unless they've actually entered that state, you could say. But the best way to describe it would be natural. It's natural. I wouldn't describe it even as a natural state, because I've said this in different videos about that word state, is that it's implying that like there's a border, that there's like a limit, that's something comes and goes. When you say enter Sahaja Samadhi, it's very clear that this does not come and go. It's not fluctuating. That's why I said it's like it's here now all the time. It's not coming and going. That's why I choose to not even say it's the natural state. It's more best described as saying your natural being. It's just your true nature, right? So that we avoid that word state. So that's the best way to say it. And the best way to relate it to something else, to reference something, to help you understand, would be like an infant, like a newborn baby. It feels like that. Everything is fresh. Everything is new. It's the state of not knowing. It's just not knowing. It's not knowing. It's purely innocent. Not knowing, innocent, awe, wonder. So there's that part of it. And at the same time, this is where it's really difficult, because basically at this point, everything is paradoxical. It's because it's wholeness. The mind just kind of says it's this or it's that. It doesn't really comprehend both. It's being both at the exact same time. Whereas the mind only knows separation. But this state is completely, there again, I got to use the word state. It's just, it's a condition. This Sahaja Samadhi it's a completeness, a wholeness, where you're experiencing, the experience is two things simultaneous. You're experiencing being in the world, but not of the world, but not in the world, right? You're experiencing life and you're experiencing death at the exact same time. You're experiencing relative and you're experiencing absolute at the exact same time. It's like the body's here, like to most people, the individual I is here, but the individual I is not here. There's effort, but there's no effort. There's doing, but there's no doer. So it's really difficult. If you're not already confused, I don't blame you if you're not confused. It's one of those things. It's like, how can you can't understand it. You can't really understand. I said at the start that you can only understand it through direct experience. But even the direct experience, they could say that I'm experiencing, this is a direct experience, is you don't even know how it's happening. You don't even know how it's possible. It's beyond the mind. It's so bizarre. But you can't deny that it's the experience where there's basically a deep meditative absorption happening 24/7, which is effortless. So how people basically, they have to meditate and get into deep meditations, deep states of absorption, different levels of samadhi, and they kind of like come out of it. It's like, this is just, it's like you go into it and it's still going 24/7, and it's effortless. You don't, it's automatic. There's nothing. There's nothing there's no effort to make it happen or anything. There's no practice. There's nothing that needs to be done. It's happening. So there's always an inner silence. There's always an inner peace. There's always an inner joy that's there. There's always this full absorption just at any point. There's no thought. There's no thought. Everything is just happening automatically, just like in the video. There's no one there's no one speaking, yet it appears that there's someone speaking. Right? It's just purely just absorbed. And it's very evident when there's no actions happening and just sitting, and you just sit. And it's just fully absorbed. It's happening. That is happening. That silence, that stillness is happening even in the midst of speaking and moving and driving and running and whatever, any sort of action is happening. There's still that sense of being centered, but there's no center. Is just pure balance, but there's the balance because there's the balance of the being formless, but at the same time there's a form, being the form as well. It's like being both. It's as if you're like straddling kind of like it's as if you're like straddling both the form and the formless, the material and the spiritual. But there's no you that's straddling it, really. It's both. It's both. Whereas, kind of getting up to that kind of point, it's kind of like, oh, like everything's real. And then it's like, oh, you kind of discard that. It's not real. It's all a dream. And then, oh, it's back to being real, but it's not serious and pure play. And everything is God. Everything is you. And then that even disappears. It's really hard to describe, but it's very natural. I guess the closest thing it'd be like if you've experienced like, those moments of like the flow state. It's being the flow state 24/7. There's absolutely no past, no future. Right? It's not to say that your memory doesn't work. You can still remember something, but it's just the attention is 100% on the present moment. So it's like it doesn't exist. In reality, it doesn't exist. Right? So you're just just present, where it's not even it's like you are the present moment. You are the present moment. It's not like you in the present moment. It's like you are the present moment. What else can we say? So it's hard. It's hard because the mind can understand. Oh yeah, the form, but how can it understand formless? How can it understand being both? Really kind of like this big kind of question mark, big confusion kind of comes up for the mind, right? It's like how can you be using the mind but also be, in a no mind state, right? No mind and no thoughts, yet it appears that this one is thinking, right? It's like, yeah, but that's automatic. And it's like, well, how can that be all these functions? The body's moving and the words are coming out without mind. And this one is saying it's consciousness. And yet it's this embodiment of consciousness at the same time. But everything is the embodiment of consciousness. Everything is consciousness. It's not like something, this is very special here and just in this body, right? It's just everything is consciousness. But yeah, so it's very much if it really feels like it's the death of the individual, the death of the I, like it disappears. It feels like you die into love. Like you just, love is, it's like the heart being how people say like, oh, thank you from the bottom of my heart. It's like you go so deep in the heart that then the heart's bottomless. And it's just constantly, it's this constant free fall into a bottomless heart, which is infinite love. And that's what you die in as a separate self, as an ego. Which you may feel like it's probably better described as like dissolving into love. Said this in other videos, it's like as a separate self, it's like you're made of salt and you keep on kind of getting a taste of the ocean, coming back, going back and forth. And one day you just go, I'm going to go full in. And you go full in and then you don't come back out. You're made of salt, you dissolve in it. So then you're the ocean. And then at that point, it's like you're gone. Everything's erased. Everything's gone. But then after, it's like the form kind of comes back. The form kind of comes back. But I guess it's best described as the form's coming back. But there's the realization that both the form and the formless. Probably the better let's flush something out here. It's kind of like before you believe that you're a wave in the ocean. You believe that you're a wave and you're moving, right? Waves move. The wave is moving. There's one wave, you're another wave, someone else is another wave, that tree is another wave. Everything is this wave. And from the perspective of this wave, then that's another wave and that's another wave. And all these waves are different and it's moving and you feel like you're going somewhere. You feel like you're going somewhere as the wave. And then as the wave folds and comes to kind of like it crashes, or whatever we say wave happens to waves, as the wave, I guess, crashes. As the wave crashes, it then feels like, oh, it's crashing and it's dying into the ocean and there's no more wave. And it's when it kind of does that, then there's this realization that I wasn't a wave. I'm the ocean. I'm the ocean. And then there's this, everything is the ocean. Everything is the source. Everything is God. And I am that source. I am the ocean. Every wave is me. Every wave is me. And that's where you kind of almost feel like, it's done. It's complete. It's over, kind of thing. Even though at that point, there's no I. I got to narrate to make a video to communicate. But it's all beyond the mind. You're not thinking any of this stuff. It's just shock. It's just shock. And everything is just like intuitively knowing it. Right? I never was that wave. Right? This dawns. I was never that wave. I'm the ocean. So there's this at that point there's this like this very hard disidentifying with it. I've mentioned a couple other videos where even at that point it was like looking at wedding photos, family photos, and distinctly being like, who's that? Who's in the picture? Who, like, very clearly, like, who is that? Where you just let go, you surrender to the separate self, the mind-made self, the ego, the identification, whatever you want to call it. It's like just like the wave. The wave surrenders to the ocean, right? At that point, I'm surrendering to God, and it's how much love makes you surrender. And it's a non-doing. You don't even like surrender. It's hard to really explain. But it's this infinite love that then makes the surrender. It's like it's like the meeting, the wave merging into the ocean, right? From that point of view, the perspective of the wave merging. That's what I wanted. I wanted to merge. That's what I was looking for. That's the only thing that can fulfill me. That's the only thing that can give me peace, that can give me love, that can give me joy, that can give me freedom is God itself, source itself, the ocean itself, right? From the perspective of the wave, dying into the ocean of infinite love. The wave thinks that it's something other than that. And then when in the merging happens, I wasn't that wave. I've been the ocean. And there's no such thing as that wave. There's only the ocean. And that everything else is the ocean. It's all made of the ocean. All these different waves that I thought them to be different waves, separate than myself. From the perspective of the ocean, it's all me. It's all the one source, the one ocean. And all these waves are movements in me, in source as the ocean. And then that kind of, I don't know how long it lasted for. So there's that. And then kind of what happens is like, it's like kind of like the wave. There's like a new wave. There's a new wave. But this new wave is completely different because there's no identification with it. There's no identification with it. And there's now this realization that I'm the ocean, but also I can't deny that there's this wave. But there's also this wave. This wave is a movement in the ocean. And the ocean is what moves the wave. The wave's just not moving by itself. It's the ocean that's moving this wave. It's the ocean that's moving all the waves. So then it's very natural because it's moving, but you're not thinking that you can control the path of your wave. So it's just there's just this ongoing surrender. And you're just being moved. And you can say, like, source is the ocean, right? All the lakes and rivers and streams. Yeah. Conceptually, we divide it up, but really, what is it? It's all just the one source. It's all the one ocean, right? The whole conception of the separation of water is all happening in the mind to separate it, because there's only water, right? We call it lakes and rivers and streams and bays and all these different things, but it's all water. All water is the one source, the one ocean, right? It's all God, right? And then from that point of view, as the ocean, where you realize that you're the ocean, it's all me, right? It's all me. And if you have the realization, you'd say the same thing. I'm not saying that's all me, like, oh, it's all me, and there's a higher and lower. If you have that realization, you say the same. You would have the same experience. It's all me, right? It's all me from that perspective of the ocean. But then, like I said, then there's this wave that then, like, kind of, again, it folds just like another, like, that wave, and then it's kind of like, but it feels like it's like, oh, there it is. But there's no identification. There's no I to that wave. There's no I to that wave anymore. Before there was an I'm a wave, then it's like I'm dying. I'm dead. I'm not the wave. I wasn't the wave. I'm the ocean now. Oh, that was just a dream. But then there's like, oh, there's still the wave. Here's the wave. It's the same wave, but it's the wave without the I. It's the wave now with the recognition, the realization that in that wave is the ocean. And in the ocean is the wave. The two are one. It's the paradox where, like I said somewhere at the start, is like, feels like you're straddling both, you're living both at the exact same time simultaneously. You're the ocean and you're the wave at the exact same time. And yet you're both, and yet you're beyond that. And yet you're beyond both. And yet you're beyond both. And that's what's that wholeness. That's the wholeness, kind of like the yin yang symbol, right? It's not one or the other. It's the one is in the other. The black is in the white and the white is in the black, right? But from the perspective of wholeness, you'd be both. You'd be both. You're beyond just this side of the black, and you're beyond the side of the white. You're both, yet you're, as a whole, you're beyond that. You're the whole. So it's very hard to describe. It's very hard to describe, but it's just this natural meditative absorption. There's like a shift that happens where maybe before, you're like, I'm meditating, and then shift happens. It's like, okay, I'm meditative. I am meditation. When you even say it, you're saying that and knowing that there's no I. There's just meditation. But it's kind of like there's still a body and there's still communication happening. So that still goes on. Everything else still goes on. Eating and sleeping and relationships, it still goes on. But it's freedom from all of it. It's freedom from all of it. It's freedom. It's that same kind of freedom in like different samadhis, like before different levels. And I'll make a different video about different levels, but a prior samadhi before is freedom. Or you can probably if you're in deep meditation, there's this freedom. freedom from everything. You have that same sense of freedom, but it's embodied freedom. You're living in the body, but totally free. There's this feeling that, yes, there's this body here, but it's kind of like you're everywhere. You're everywhere and nowhere at the exact same time. It's like centerless, right? In conversation, sometimes you have to, just through conditioning, you're pointing like, yeah, me. But when that's happening, there's a distinct knowing that, like, yes, me, but also me. Like I and I. It's like you have like two kind of, everyone else refers and goes I, but it's kind of like there's an I when I'm talking to others, and then there's an I that I know. The I is the formless, right? So it's kind of like this I is being used as like an avatar playing and communicating on the relative level, but the absolute I is the I that most have not realized, right? And that's what, through some of these videos and meditations and transmissions, that's what I help you realize, is that I, that real I. When you go looking for the separate entity I, you don't find it. It's not there. It's not there. And then but what's aware that's not there is that I of awareness, you could say, the real I, the true I, right? But when kind of after enlightenment, and there's this Sahaja Samadhi, it's it's not like you're denying it. That would be, again, like a huge like bypass. It'd be a huge separation. It would be probably the biggest separation, just as much as the separation, thinking that you're separate from life. It's like, denying that there's a wave happening. Oh, I'm just the ocean, but there's no wave. There's no wave, right? You're creating even more of a separation. So yes, there's still a body, and yes, there's still life, and but it's totally different now. It's totally different. It's like it's being lived from a whole new perspective. The same life, everything appears the same, but it's the perspective has shifted. Everything is, it's a perception. Everything, the perception has shifted, and it's like before you're looking for like happiness, love, peace, freedom, and then now you're like in the world living as that, embodied. And it's probably, at this point, that's probably enough said, because I don't think I can say anything else to help explain anything more. So let's just leave it at that. And if something kind of comes that maybe it's a better analogy or better explanation, then I'll just make another video. But if you're interested in what this is, hopefully you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions about Sahaja Samadhi, leave a comment and I'll try and make a separate video to answer it. I'll see you in the next one.